A dull ache radiated from his lower back, a phantom soreness that had become his unwelcome morning ritual. Ethan Vance's body was a map of faint, reddish marks, delicate bruises that bloomed on his skin overnight. He felt as if he had run a marathon in his sleep, his limbs heavy with an exhaustion that made no sense. For weeks, ever since Julian Croft's death, these strange afflictions had haunted him. He was jolted from a half-sleep by the memory of a dream, a recurring vision of being pinned down by a weight both crushing and electrifying. A frigid hand would wrap around his waist while hot, desperate kisses trailed along the nape of his neck. He always strained to see the face of his captor, his body arching with a mixture of protest and pleasure, only to wake up gasping, the familiar pattern of his penthouse ceiling swimming into view. The burning in his throat was sharp as he sat up, his breath coming in ragged bursts. With a groan, he swung his legs over the side of the bed. The penthouse was silent, a vast, sterile space high above the New York City skyline, a fortress of solitude. That was the most unsettling part. He lived entirely alone. So where did the marks come from? In the marble-clad bathroom, he tore off his t-shirt. The cool air hit his skin, which, as expected, was littered with the evidence of his phantom lover. The marks were a paradox, intimate yet unnerving. He stared at his reflection, his expression hardening. These dreams, this constant bodily pain, it was all becoming too much. His phone buzzed on the counter, its screen lighting up with a news alert. Croft Industries in turmoil following heir's funeral. Julian Croft, 27, who died in a vehicular accident 7 days prior, has been laid to rest. Ethan's fingers tightened into a fist. An image flashed in his mind. Two men, faces inches apart, spitting venomous words at each other, the air crackling with their shared animosity. His heart skipped a beat. Looking back at the mirror, he saw a man on the edge, a glint of obsession in his eyes. A slow, cold smile spread across his lips. He spoke to the empty room, his voice a low challenge directed at the ghost he was certain lingered just beyond sight. He knew Julian wasn't truly gone. He whispered that his rival hadn't really died. Had he? The only response was the oppressive silence of the high-rise. A surge of irritation washed over him, and with a guttural roar, he swept everything off the marble countertop. Aftershave, cologne, a silver razor, sending them clattering to the floor. He panted, his chest heaving, until a semblance of calm returned. His gaze locked onto his own reflection again, as if trying to see through it to something else. He announced to the silence that if Julian didn't show himself, he was going to get married. As if on cue, a deafening crack of thunder shook the building. The sky outside the floor-to-ceiling windows had turned a bruised, stormy black. A primal fear, cold and sharp, pricked at his skin. He turned to leave, but at the threshold of the bathroom, he felt it. An intense, searing gaze on the back of his neck. He spun around, but saw only his own pale face in the mirror. For a moment, he wondered if he was losing his mind. But after he flicked off the light and stepped into the hallway, a thin layer of fog bloomed across the mirror's surface. A flash of violet lightning illuminated the glass, revealing for a split second the ghost of a cold, severe face. Julian Croft was his nemesis. A high-priced clairvoyant the Vance family had kept on retainer for generations had declared it so at Ethan's birth. She had prophesied a lifelong battle between them, a rivalry that would end only in death. Ethan had dismissed it as archaic nonsense until he met Julian. An inexplicable, primal urge always drove him to acts of irrational aggression around the man. He had an obsessive desire to shatter Julian's composure, to break his pride, to see him on his knees, forced to admit defeat. From the Ivy League halls to the Wall Street trading floors, their lives were a continuous battlefield. Ethan's typical greeting for him was a sneering inquiry as to why he wasn't dead yet. Julian would simply meet his gaze with those dark, unreadable eyes and calmly retort that he would ensure Ethan died first. Their clashes often escalated, ending in shoved chests and bloody lips, kisses that tasted of iron and fury. They were two forces of nature, refusing to yield, refusing to let go. But they were more than just rivals. An unspoken, unacknowledged truth simmered beneath the surface. It had started at a charity gala. Ethan's treacherous half-brother, desperate to sabotage a deal, had slipped something into his champagne. He remembered the world tilting, a wave of debilitating heat washing over him. He had never felt so vulnerable, and of all people, Julian Croft had been the one to find him, slumped in a secluded alcove. Julian had looked down at him, a mask of cold indifference on his face, and told him to beg. The sheer arrogance of it made Ethan want to strangle him. Even in his compromised state, Ethan Vance was a predator. He would not be made a fool. If he was going down, he was taking Julian with him. He beckoned him closer with a weak finger, pretending to whisper something. When Julian leaned in, his guard momentarily down, Ethan snaked a hand around the back of his neck and pulled him into a brutal kiss. For the first time, Julian's legendary composure shattered. His eyes, usually so guarded, went wide with shock, his long lashes trembling. The discovery fueled Ethan's boldness. After the initial surprise, Julian didn't push him away. Instead, he responded, meeting Ethan's desperate aggression with a clumsy, hungry exploration of his own. They were both novices, their movements rough, punctuated by muffled insults, yet neither pulled away. From that night on, a new, dangerous current flowed between them. A glance across a boardroom was no longer just a challenge. It was charged with a volatile, private intimacy. They never spoke of it, never defined it, and before they could, the news of Julian's death had ripped through the city. Ethan hadn't believed it. He'd skipped the funeral. It was impossible. The clairvoyant had said their battle was for life. As long as he was breathing, Julian had to be too. He concluded that this was just another one of Julian's elaborate schemes. Gripping the steering wheel of his car, Ethan's knuckles turned white. He glanced at his reflection in the rearview mirror, his jaw tight. He muttered Julian's name, promising to drag him out of hiding and finish him for good. Accelerating, he dialed a number. He informed the person on the other end that it was time for them to appear with the others. A crisp, professional female voice replied with a simple, "Yes, Mr. Vance." He strode into a chic cafe in Soho, his eyes immediately finding the woman and her parents at their designated table. They exchanged knowing glances, their smiles practiced and perfect as they began discussing wedding arrangements. They played their parts flawlessly, the image of a blissfully happy couple. Throughout the charade, Ethan felt that same searing gaze on his back. He subtly scanned the room, searching for the source, but found nothing. The watcher was a ghost, visible only to him. The lack of control gnawed at him. Just as they were preparing to leave, he spotted him. A man in a baseball cap, furtively snapping pictures. The moment their eyes met, the man bolted. That was his target. Ethan gave chase, cornering him in a narrow alleyway. He wrenched the phone from the man's grasp, scrolling through the gallery until he found the photos of himself. He demanded to know who sent him. The man remained silent until Ethan threatened to call the police, describing in detail the felony charges for stalking. Defeated, the man took the phone back and dialed his employer. After 2 rings, the call connected. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. He was about to speak Julian's name when a different voice, deep and authoritative, came through the speaker. It was his father, Robert Vance. Ethan's face became a mask of cold indifference. He took the phone and addressed his father, his tone laced with ice, asking if he'd resorted to hiring spies because he didn't trust his own son. Robert Vance's voice rose in anger, questioning Ethan's tone. He rationalized that after Ethan had refused a match with the Dalton heiress only to suddenly announce his own engagement, he was merely doing his due diligence. Ethan cut him off, stating that his personal life was his own concern. He suggested his father focus on his other, more favored son. He reminded him, his voice dropping to a dangerous low, that he was the one in control of the Vance empire now, and it would be unwise to provoke him. He ended the call. After deleting his photos, he tossed the phone back to the hired man and left. Driving back to his penthouse, Julian's cool, detached face swam in his mind, fueling his frustration. Where the hell was he? Cursing under his breath, he stormed into his apartment, heading straight for the bedroom. He had just pulled off his shirt when his phone rang again. It was his father. He answered, a mocking smile playing on his lips. Robert's furious voice erupted from the speaker, declaring that he would not approve of the marriage. Ethan countered, reminding him how the family elders had been pressuring him to settle down. He asked if it was the family that disapproved or just him. His words only enraged his father more. Ethan added fuel to the fire, his voice dripping with false adoration, professing that he loved this woman to death, that he couldn't live without her. He told his father that if he couldn't be happy for him, that was his own problem. Then he hung up. He turned, a triumphant smirk on his face, but a sudden chill swept through the room. The hairs on his arms stood on end. He spun around to see a pair of deathly pale hands emerge from the shadows beside his bed. They were followed by the sharp, aristocratic features he knew better than his own. Julian's icy fingers, like ghostly serpents, wrapped around his throat. His eyes burned with a cold fury. A glacial voice, Julian's voice, whispered a threat against the marriage, promising a swift end. Ethan's pupils contracted. Staring at the translucent, obviously not living man before him, his first reaction wasn't fear. It was a sharp, stabbing pain deep in his chest. Julian wasn't a man anymore. So it was true. He had died in that crash. It was impossible. Seeing Ethan's dazed expression, Julian's spectral brow furrowed, his grip tightening. He asked with chilling coldness if Ethan was thinking of someone else, the woman from the cafe. The sub-zero temperature of his skin was the final confirmation. A wild, desperate laugh escaped Ethan's lips. Julian looked perplexed by the outburst. But as Ethan laughed, his vision blurred, and the pain in his chest intensified, as if a giant hand were squeezing his heart. Tears streamed from his eyes, landing on Julian's ghostly hand. The ghost flinched as if burned and instantly released his neck. He looked utterly lost, murmuring if he had hurt him. Before Julian could react, Ethan threw his arms around his neck and crashed their lips together, stealing his breath in a frantic, possessive kiss. It was like all their previous encounters, yet hollow, insufficient. The pain in his heart grew sharper. He bit down hard on Julian's tongue, the metallic taste of blood flooding his mouth. Julian didn't pull away. He simply endured it, his lips moving against Ethan's in passive response. Ethan broke the kiss, gasping for air, fighting to control the storm of emotions inside him. Julian's cold fingertips brushed against his cheek, wiping away the tears. His voice, for the first time, held a trace of something other than anger, a hesitant, careful note. He asked why Ethan was crying. Julian's thumb tilted his chin up, forcing their eyes to meet. He searched Ethan's face for what felt like an eternity before Ethan finally found his voice. He asked how this had happened to him. Julian's response was a single, clipped word: the crash. Ethan pressed on, needing to know if it was an accident or deliberate. Julian insisted it was an accident, but a fleeting, unreadable emotion flickered in his eyes. A flicker Ethan did not miss. With a knot of dread in his stomach, Ethan asked if this form, this ghostly state, would fade away. Julian shook his head, though his eyes were filled with uncertainty. He admitted he didn't know. Perhaps it would. Ethan's heart plummeted. The thought of Julian disappearing completely was a terror worse than death. He began to ramble, a frantic chant of denial, insisting that Julian couldn't disappear, that he wouldn't allow it. Julian's voice cut through his panic, his gaze suddenly intense. He asked why. Why wouldn't Ethan allow it? The question hung in the air, charged with unspoken history. Ethan looked away, unable to meet that burning gaze. He stammered that it was because he hated him, because he wanted all of Julian's suffering to be by his hand. It was the only answer his pride would allow. After a long silence, Julian's cold fingers intertwined with his. He began to place soft, lingering kisses along Ethan's jaw and neck. He whispered against his earlobe that he hated him too. Something told Ethan that Julian was hiding something, but no matter how he pried, the ghost remained silent. So Ethan began his own investigation. He didn't believe for a second that the crash was an accident. They knew each other too well. He could read Julian's lies as easily as his own. Someone had murdered him. But who? And why wouldn't Julian tell him? The security footage showed exactly what the report said. A truck driver, intoxicated, swerving into Julian's lane. A textbook tragedy. Yet it felt profoundly wrong. As he stewed in his frustration, a call from his father provided an unexpected lead. Ethan was in the back of his car, exhausted after a long night with Julian, when the call came through. Robert Vance's voice was tense, demanding Ethan return to the family estate immediately. When Ethan apathetically asked why, his father, after a strained pause, added that Mr. Alastair, the family's clairvoyant, had foreseen a dark entity attached to him and was at the estate to help. The line went dead. The clairvoyant's uncertain prophecy about Julian's potential to fade echoed in his mind. He ordered his driver to turn around and head for the estate. Mr. Alastair was the same man who had declared their fated rivalry at birth. He had a reputation for being unervingly accurate. Arriving at the sprawling stone mansion, Ethan saw his father behaving with an almost sycophantic reverence toward the man. Mr. Alastair was dressed in a simple but exquisitely tailored suit, his hair white, his eyes cloudy and ancient, betraying his actual age, which was similar to his father's. Mr. Alastair seemed to read his thoughts, explaining that practitioners of his art often paid a physical price for peering too deeply into the veil of fate. Ethan nodded, feigning concern, and brought up his father's phone call. The clairvoyant stroked his chin, his expression grave. He asked if Ethan had been experiencing strange dreams lately, dreams where he couldn't see the other person's face. Ethan feigned shock and confirmed it. He didn't mention that Julian had already confessed to causing the dreams and marks, initially afraid a direct appearance would terrify the staunch materialist Ethan had once been. The old man's voice grew solemn. He declared that Ethan was being haunted by a malevolent spirit. He noted a dark energy clinging to him, which he estimated had been there for about 25 days, the exact time since Julian's accident. He concluded that the entity was almost certainly the ghost of Julian Croft. If it wasn't exorcised, He warned it would lead to Ethan's death. His father, his face a mask of concern, asked if there was a solution. Mr. Alistair explained his theory. The spirit's goal was to possess Ethan's body and steal his life force, what he called a perfect destiny. He described Ethan's destiny as a rare and powerful beacon for malevolent entities. Normally, it would protect him, but during the blood moon, it would be at its weakest. He then revealed that a blood moon was due in 3 days. He proposed a plan. Ethan would act as bait. He would enter a specially prepared ritual circle, and when the spirit was focused on stealing his destiny, they would ambush and destroy it. He asked if Ethan agreed. Destroy it. The words echoed in Ethan's mind. He met the clairvoyant's cloudy gaze and, with a perfectly crafted smile, agreed to the plan. As he did, he caught the brief, triumphant glance exchanged between his father and Mr. Alistair. He pretended not to notice. Back at the penthouse, he found Julian in the kitchen, awkwardly attempting to cook while wearing an apron. The sheer domesticity of the scene, given their history, was bizarrely intimate. Death, it seemed, was the ultimate refiner of relationships. Ethan leaned against the doorframe, critiquing the unappetizing look of whatever was in the pan. Julian stopped, turned, and flatly suggested Ethan could cook instead. The old dynamic flared instantly. Ethan shot back, questioning the nerve of the ghost living in his home and expecting to be waited on. They fell into a familiar, heated argument that ended with Julian pinning him against the cool kitchen wall. He murmured for Ethan to judge for himself if he was useless, before their mouths met in a long, searing kiss. It was often said that a man in the throes of passion would reveal any secret. Ethan decided to test the theory. Mid-kiss, he whispered, asking if Julian had ever lied to him. Julian's eyes fluttered open, his own reflected in them, and admitted that he had. When Ethan asked what the lie was, Julian evaded the question, trying to distract him with the kiss. Annoyed at being stonewalled, Ethan's temper flared. He shoved Julian off him with a forceful kick. "Get out," he snarled. Julian showed no anger. He simply straightened his spectral form, pulled a blanket over Ethan, and his voice, low and steady, held the weight of a vow. He said that there were things he didn't know how to explain, but he needed Ethan to believe that he would never, ever hurt him. He trailed off, giving Ethan one last, profound look before leaving the room. 3 days passed in a blur. As night fell, the moon rose, stained a horrifying, bloody crimson. Following his father's directions, Ethan arrived at Mr. Alistair's secluded property. A large circle was drawn in the center of the yard, surrounded by strange, fluttering banners. Mr. Alistair greeted him with a benevolent smile and handed him a bowl and a silver knife. He explained in a raspy voice that the ritual required a blood offering. To reassure him, he and his father both showed Ethan their own bandaged wrists and pointed to 2 full bowls of blood nearby. Ethan played his part, turning his back to them as he pretended to slice his wrist, filling the bowl. He handed it back, swaying theatrically, and asked what was next. His father eagerly instructed him to go to the center of the circle, the nexus of the array. Ethan complied without question. He watched as Mr. Alistair sprinkled his blood around the circle's perimeter before taking one of the other bowls and beginning to paint complex sigils on parchment. His father watched the process with a rapt, greedy intensity. Ethan sat in the circle's center, idly pressing on his bandaged, entirely uninjured arm. Half an hour later, Mr. Alistair finally finished. The moment he announced his completion, Ethan clutched his chest and coughed up a mouthful of fake blood. His father's voice, filled with manic glee, echoed in the night. It worked. It's mine. He stared at Ethan, his face twisted in a sick, triumphant smile. The perfect destiny. It's finally mine. From now on, I am the true head of the Vance family. Ethan wiped his mouth, looking up with feigned confusion. Mr. Alistair now stood beside his father, who clapped the old man on the shoulder, promising him a lifetime of wealth. The clairvoyant's eyes, usually half-closed, opened wide, his gaze slimy and reptilian as he asked for a small favor in return. Robert Vance waved a dismissive hand, agreeing to anything. The old man's voice dropped, becoming ancient and cold. I need you to die. A blade appeared in his hand, plunging into Robert Vance's chest. His father's eyes widened in disbelief before he collapsed, a crimson flower blooming on his shirt. Mr. Alistair, unfazed, turned his attention to Ethan, who was still on the ground. He commented on how painful it must be to have one's destiny stolen. Ethan, playing the fool, asked what a perfect destiny was, and why his father would do this. Mr. Alistair decided to indulge the dying man. He explained the hierarchy of fates, from perfect to catastrophic. A perfect destiny granted its owner unparalleled success, health, and a long life, making them impervious to dark forces. It was the ultimate prize. Robert Vance, resentful that his own father had bypassed him and named Ethan the heir, had been easily manipulated by the promise of seizing that destiny for himself. Ethan looked at his father's corpse with a surprising lack of emotion. Their relationship had always been transactional, cold. Then he asked the clairvoyant why he wanted it. Mr. Alistair's face contorted with bitterness. He spoke of his own catastrophic fate. Abandoned as a child, his mentor dying shortly after taking him in, branded a curse, and diagnosed with a terminal illness at 25. He had survived this long by stealing the lifespans of others, a decade from a superior fate, 5 from a lesser one. But Ethan's perfect destiny would grant him immortality. It was his ultimate solution to what he saw as a cosmic injustice. Ethan then asked the crucial question: was Julian's death connected to him? At the mention of Julian's name, a flicker of surprise crossed the old man's face, followed by a cruel laugh. He admitted that Julian had ruined his original plan. He and Robert had set the trap for Ethan on a night of a partial blood moon, but Julian had shown up instead, discovered their plot, and threatened to expose them. On his way to warn Ethan, he had driven straight into the path of a truck driver Mr. Alistair had hypnotized. He called it poetic justice, still musing over why Julian, whose fate was supposedly antagonistic to Ethan's, would try to save him. Satisfied that all questions were answered, he raised the bloody knife, declaring it was time for Ethan to die. He lunged. Ethan didn't move. 10 centimeters from his chest, the knife stopped as if hitting an invisible wall. A blast of unseen energy sent Mr. Alistair flying backward. A cold hand reached down for Ethan. Julian's voice, solid and real beside him, asked if he was hurt. Ethan scoffed as he took the hand and stood. Mr. Alistair, spitting blood, stared in horror at the ghost. Julian Croft. How? Ethan unwrapped the bandage from his arm, revealing flawless skin. He mocked the seer, asking if he really thought he was that naive. He explained how he'd grown suspicious of his father's strange deference to the man. After seeing them skulking around his penthouse planting cursed talismans, he'd had the objects analyzed by a trusted expert and discovered their true purpose: to weaken and destroy a spirit. He realized the elaborate blood moon ritual wasn't for Julian. It was for him. He had confronted Julian, who, under threat of Ethan finding a new lover, finally confessed everything. On the night before his death, Julian had been overwhelmed by a sudden, horrific vision of the plot to steal Ethan's life. He had rushed to stop them only to be killed for his efforts. But as the world's protagonist, in a sense, his essence was too strong to be extinguished. Fearing he would frighten Ethan and still grappling with his own feelings, he had remained hidden until the threat of marriage forced his hand. Together, they had planned this counter-ambush. The blood in the bowl was from a dying animal the Destiny Mister, Alistair, had just stolen. Realizing he'd been tricked, the clairvoyant screamed in rage and bit his finger, attempting one last spell. But the stolen, corrupted life force was already poisoning him from within. The blood moon overhead darkened, and a bolt of lightning tore through the sky, striking him directly. Julian pulled Ethan back, explaining that the man's lifetime of murder had fast-tracked his karmic retribution. When the light faded, the bodies of Mr. Alistair and Robert Vance were gone, dragged to a hell of their own, making to face the souls they'd wronged. As they walked away from the house, the crimson hue of the moon began to recede. The crisis was over. Julian stopped, taking Ethan's hand. He stated quietly that he would likely remain a ghost forever. Ethan met his gaze. So what? A ghost can still do everything else, can't he? A faint blush colored Julian's translucent cheeks. Yes, he admitted. In the next moment, Ethan felt a cool weight slip onto his ring finger. A simple, elegant band had materialized there. He looked up to see a matching one on Julian's hand. Julian explained that he'd bought them the night of the gala, but never had the chance to give it to him. Ethan looked at the man who had been his mortal enemy, now fumbling and uncertain, and a genuine smile touched his lips. He leaned in close to Julian's ear. "You're infuriating, Julian Croft. You even beat me to this. So, is that a yes?" Julian asked, turning his head, their lips brushing. "What if it isn't?" Ethan teased, a playful glint in his eye. "Are you going to kill me?" He met Julian's dark, intense gaze. A slow smile spread across the ghost's face, his eyes darkening with a familiar, possessive fire. "You know another way to be killed." Ethan closed the small distance between them, his lips meeting Julian's. "Yes," he whispered against his mouth. From now on, they were not just rivals. They were something more, a truth forged in death and defiance. The war was over, but the games had just begun.